Hey y'all, welcome to the Filling Station. I am so excited. It's been an interesting day in the market, but y'all, let me go ahead and give my disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. I just enjoy teaching people how to build generational wealth, and the stock market is just one of those avenues. This video is for educational purposes only. With that being said, y'all, let's get started. So, we are looking at the SPY, and this morning we had levels of SPY was an inside day, and I have deleted that off of my chart for some reason, somehow. But I know that during pre-market, it broke through the levels and it reached a target during pre-market. So this sell-off that we had was not it wasn't shocking that it happened the way that it happened. Now to the downside, when we broke that downside trigger, it did almost come exactly close to the place. We had 514.01 as the target, and it reached 514.35, which was very, very close. It was different to see it go from 520 to 514, but again, that was an inside day candle. Those just give us an idea or a guide, to go by, right? So if you got in the SPY at the open to the downside, that would have been a really, really nice trade. I would have probably entered, once it came out the 5 and 50 cross, but because I didn't have a clear that gathering spot, I normally don't enter there. I like to see my MACD fanned out just a little bit, like separated here, fanned out just a little bit more. So if you would have entered this trade to the downside, you could have scalped it down from the 518 all the way down to the 514, which is almost a $4 drop. So that would have been a nice scalp to the downside. I was actually in Tesla at the time, but I was able to get in a quick scalp for the SPY. So that was a good trade. But if you didn't get in this and tried to get into this portion of it here, the only thing I would say would have been somewhat of a decent trade would have been catching this maybe off this double bottom back to the upside and then selling it at the top. You had a crossing of the MACD, so that was, I could have entered, or you could have entered here. But once it started doing this with the MACD, that's not, in my opinion, tradable. It's hard to make money in this area, in this direction, the way that it's moving. One of the things I notice about the SPY is it tends to move back to the upside towards the end of the day, towards the afternoon, last maybe 30 minutes of the market, 15 minutes of the market. It tends to have a run up. So, and that's not always guaranteed, because sometimes it can have a sell off, let me say that. But more, normally it goes back to the upside. So what it came down, bounced off this ATR trailing stop, which is very strong support or very strong resistance, let me say that. And it actually 5 and 50 crossed here, and the MACD gave us a signal back to the upside. So if you'd have bought it off of this and took it back to the upside, it went from 515 up to 518. That would have been somewhat of a decent scalp to the upside. That's if you trade the SPY. Looking at it on a bigger time frame, we can see that we came down, created a gathering spot, found support, and went back to the upside. So SPY was a decent trade if you were able to get in the SPY. Let me say that. Now Tesla, which is always interesting for me because Tesla does what it does, right? Now, it did surprise me, let me say that, to reach 179 today, only because we were at we were at 171, 172. That was our gathering spot. The 172 area was our gathering spot this morning. So right at the open, that pivot that this MACD did, I'm going to try to make it bigger here. That pivot, sometimes if the MACD, my 5 and 50 cross, and I'm looking at the MACD is here. My 5 and 50 is what I normally look for my entry. Even though my 5 did this little pivot thing here, my MACD gave me a crossing here. So that was the signal, looking at the 5-minute chart, to the upside. And if you got in at that time, that was a nice trade because that was at 173. Tesla went all the way up to 179, only to give us a double top. So if you missed the entry to the upside, you could have very well taken it back to the downside for a scalp. And notice I said scalp because look at the candles up versus the candles coming back to the downside. And as you can see, we consolidated and kind of went like that zigzag type thing. And I normally don't like to trade the zigzag lines. And normally Tesla, towards the afternoon, it tends to have a little bounce towards closing, let's say that. So I would say Tesla was a good trade this morning if you were able to get in on this move to the upside. I'm going to go to the 2 minute for a moment because The 2 minute gave us the signal also right at the open, that 5 and 50 crossing right there. So you could have entered if you traded Tesla about 9:42, 9:45 this morning, and stayed in this trade all the way up until about 10:16, 10:15, and that would have been a nice trade for the day, right? That's something to think about. The MACD crossed here, and it start flattening here, so that would have been a signal to get out of your trade. And especially if it start crossing back to the downside, you don't want to be in the upside move if the market is going down, right? That's something to think about. So yeah, Tesla was interesting today. It's going to be interesting to watch and see how it moves tomorrow, considering that, the CPI data comes out tomorrow. And I'm going to go and look at this is the 30-minute chart for Tesla. Again, we see how it ran up and came back down, consolidated, and tried to move up, but it wasn't a lot of, it was that up and down type thing. And if you're looking at it on this 30-minute, we can see that basically it just consolidated. I'm going to go to the 4-hour just to see how Tesla is looking. That 5 and 50 crossed to the upside, which is good. My concern for Tesla tomorrow is, are we going to continue up to this 50 EMA on the daily chart? Because Tesla has some small gaps to the upside that need to be filled. And at the 184.48 to the 186.73 is a small gap, which is right there at where the 50 EMA is. So if you trade Tesla, it could very well be interesting. It did find support on the 5 EMA. We are above the 20 EMA. We closed above the 20 EMA, which is good. So I would definitely, I say trade what you see. I say that often, anything is possible, especially with Tesla, because just when you think it's not going to do something, it shows you clearly that it is. Trade what you see. NVDA was another interesting, let me say very interesting trade. I don't know if I have, yes, okay. NVIDIA was another interesting trade. It too was I believe it was an inside day. It was not, and I believe it was. I just went ahead and cleared it off my charts. But looking at NVIDIA, it broke out of the gathering spot, right? It came down, and if you entered NVIDIA right when the bell, right in the open, right at the open, not in the open, 5 and 50 crossed right at 9:30. Looking at this 5-minute chart, it consolidated I would have waited and then entered my trade out of this gathering spot here. And notice that, those consolidation areas, or what I like to say the gathering spot, they're created throughout the day. So if you can wait until it breaks past that place and let that be your entry place, those are good entries for me. So looking at NVIDIA here to the downside, if we would have entered it at 863.70, it came down to 830.22. That's a nice trade to the downside. We could have taken this one trade and just been done right for the day, because it went sideways majority of the day. After that decent trade, it would have just went, sideways, or you'd have been chasing it, or, trying to find a place to get in. So yeah, the market has been interesting today. It has been very interesting. Tomorrow will be yeah, we get information tomorrow, which is the CPI data, but I would say, based on how the VIX is on the daily chart, we could very well, we don't know. I'm not even going to say I'm going to predict what's going to happen, because the market does what the market does. In my opinion, I always say trade what you see. And if you don't have a clear signal as to when to enter your trades, it's best to, like I did on yesterday, just sit on the sidelines. It's best to sit on the sidelines than to lose money, right? Or enter and then you don't know when to get out, or you're waiting on it to get out. And one of the things I had to learn the hard way is the emotional side with trading, and hoping that it can come back to this area. Hope is not a strategy. Learning to read the charts and learning to, pay attention to the signals that's been given to you. And it's okay to have a small loss. Cut your losses quick. That's one of the things that I had to learn, let me say, the hard way. So yeah, I like to share some of my experiences and hope that it's helpful to others, right? So again, y'all, thank you so much for watching today. I am super, super excited. It's been a great day in the market. I've learned a lot. Yeah, I've experienced a lot. Today's been a profitable day. And yeah, we learn and we grow together, y'all. So if you could, please like, share, and subscribe, and all of that good stuff. And until next time, y'all, be blessed as well as a blessing unto others.